Okay, someone's got that. All right. Okay, so the first item of business is that every meeting always starts this way. If you could please make sure that your mics are muted, that would be a great help. A reminder that the session today is being recorded. So if you're not comfortable showing your face or having your name visible, please, disguise yourself as appropriate. We will be sharing the recording to YouTube later as well. And the last item of business is just a reminder to everyone to ask questions. We want this to be as participatory as possible. So please feel free to enter your questions into the chat all through the discussion. If you have burning questions that you would like to directly ask any of our panelists, please feel free to put your hand up, and we'll be monitoring the chat, and we'll call on you just to keep things orderly. Okie dokie. So the next, let me just put this in full screen. So yes, before we dive into the program today, I just want to do a quick land acknowledgement. I'd like to acknowledge that today's meeting is being hosted on the unceded ancestral and traditional territories of the Squamish, Musqueam, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And we invite all of our participants today to think about the land that they're on and its history. And we gratefully acknowledge our Indigenous hosts, and we greatly appreciate the land where we live, work, and play. Okay, so we have had a very exciting PAW so far. We've had an action-packed week. On Monday, we had talks by different PDFAs and unions about strategies and experiences in collective bargaining. Yesterday, we had a really great panel discussion about transitioning to an academic career. And today, we have another incredible panel for you to discuss transitioning to industry. But before we begin, I just want to give a quick shout out to the other events that are happening this week. Just so that everyone is aware, tomorrow we have 3 fabulous discussions on EDI. One is best practices on equity, diversity, inclusion in research. We'll also have a talk from Mike Hacks about programs and advice on how to market yourself. And we have a third talk about the experiences of LGBTQ2S+ postdocs in science. And then on Friday, we have another really informative talk on postdocs and immigration. And of course, we'll close things off with our 2021 Image Contest Award Ceremony. Sorry, Contest Award Ceremony. And if, as I've mentioned, if you're unable to attend any of the events, they are recorded and they'll get posted later. Okay, so on to today's discussion. So first of all, my name's Emma Griffiths, and I'm a research associate at Simon Fraser University. I've been involved in postdoc advocacy for many years. I've been the chair of CAPS and the president of the SFU PDA. And I am joined today by my co-host, my co-moderator, Dhruv Lavanya. He's the VC membership at CAPS, and he's also a postdoc at U of A. And so we'll be tag teaming moderating today's event, which is important for a number of different reasons. So as academics, we're often taught how to do research, but not really how to make a living doing research. And when we start off our postdoc careers, many of us hope and plan to get PI positions. But as we move through our postdoc years, a lot of us end up pivoting from those original plans for a variety of reasons. And industry is a very exciting opportunity. It's a lot of people think it's an opportunity to make more money. It's less theoretical. There's a chance to contribute more directly to society. There are more opportunities to move around once you develop a set of transferable skills. Are these thoughts true? I guess we'll find out today. So we're going to be talking about a number of different themes today. And we'll be chatting with a panel of 5 different folks who have gone into industry. We're really pleased and excited to welcome today Dr. Adetoyese Oyedun, who is the Senior Project Manager of the North North Alberta Institute of Technology. I'm sorry if I butchered your name there. You can correct me later. Dr. Ella Dudek, who is the senior scientist at Future Fields. Dr. Mohita Sharma, she is the project manager at LuminUltra. Dr. Nishil Mohammed is a project engineer at Aquatech, and Dr. Shivali Joshi is an R&D scientist at ChipCare. Throughout today's discussion, we're going to divide things up into themes. First, we're going to talk about the panelists' career paths. We'll talk a little bit about why they chose industry, what it might offer to postdocs and some of its advantages and disadvantages compared to other career paths. We'll talk about the skills you need to go into industry and some of the challenges that our panelists have faced along the way. And then we'll close things off with some lessons learned and some takeaways. Okay, so that ends my opening remarks. Okay, so to kick things off, I think it would be really great for us to start with a round of introductions. So each of the panelists, if you could tell us in a few sentences who you are, if you could describe the work that you do and the research you did for your postdoc, that I think will help provide the context for understanding your career path and how you've gotten to where you are today. So your name, what your job is, and what your postdoc research was. That would be great. And maybe we'll start with Adetoyese.
Thank you very much. And I'm really happy to be here today. And thanks for inviting me. I always love to share because I've been on this path before. So, and looking back to some years now, I've learned a lot of things and I'm looking forward to sharing today. So you can call me Toye for short. So my name is Adetoyese Oyedun, and I currently work at Northern Alberta Institute of Technology as a senior project manager. Even though what I'm doing currently is plastic research in action, but what I'm managing is between industry and academics. And for my postdoc, I did my postdoc at U of A for 4 years. And I was doing, I focused majorly on a lot of things: clean energy, technical analysis, life cycle analysis of biofuel production, waste management, and a lot of things that I covered, you know, based on my PhD work and my master's work. So thank you.
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you very much. How about we next go to Ella?
Hello, everyone. So I am Ella Dudek, and I am based in Edmonton and currently working in Future Fields. And I am a protein purification team leader because I specialized in protein purification through my career, even though I hated it when I was doing my PhD, because, you know, it becomes very boring after 4 years. But then I continued. So during my PhD, I gained a lot of experience in E. coli system and in yeast systems. And then I was so tired of protein purification. So I found a postdoc which offered mammalian cell culture and, you know, pathways, ER proteins studies. So I moved, because I did my PhD in Poland, and I moved for postdoc to Edmonton, to University of Alberta. And my postdoc research was supposed to be focused on ER stress during different conditions. But once my supervisor found out that I know how to purify proteins, we switched to purify more proteins with mammalian system. So I was, so my research then focused on producing and characterizing karraticulin mutants involved in sudden unexpected death. So I did a lot of studies with proteins again. And then I worked also with Dr. Houghton in his, I worked on the development of vaccine for hepatitis C, which is protein-based vaccine. And now I am working in Future Fields, and I lead the team of protein scientists, and we are purifying proteins from Drosophila melanogaster. So this is my
Wonderful, awesome. Well, lots of protein purification there. Okay, so up next, Dr. Mohita Sharma.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for inviting me today. So I currently work as a product manager for LuminUltra. It is a Canadian company that provides microbial diagnostic solution for many industries. We make kits, instruments, provide lab services for clinical diagnostics, environmental surveillance, oil and gas. And I work at the interface of technology development, product commercialization, and business growth in my current role. So I orchestrate new product development end to end. I take care of product from commercialization phase, make a business case out of it, and I'm involved in the product development phases of testing, validation, and then finally commercializing and launching it. And in this specific role, you work with almost every department of the company, and which makes it really exciting. And before this, I was a postdoc at University of Calgary, and I was with Petroleum Microbiology Research Group. And I also did 2 years of industrial postdoc with Shell. And my theme there was, again, using microorganisms and studying it for different oil and gas related applications, be it beneficial like for making biofuels or understanding detrimental processes like microbiologically influenced corrosion. So that's my background, and it's very applicable in my current role.
Fantastic. Wonderful. Nishil, Mohammed.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be a part of this wonderful panel. First of all, thank you for this invitation. So my name is Nishil Mohammed, and I'm currently working as a project engineer with Aquatech Dewatering company. We are based in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. So at my current role, I lead the design, build, and operation of decentralized wastewater treatment systems for groundwater treatment systems and stormwater treatment systems. Before this, I was working in the States for almost 2.5 years. I was working for an organization called Southern Research, where I was involved in a lot of performance in evaluation of new innovative technologies for industrial wastewater treatment. I was involved in a lot of consulting projects and research and development projects. I graduated from University of Waterloo with my PhD in chemical engineering, and I continued for a postdoc for 1 more year there. And there I was involved in almost the same area where I was researching on new technologies for wastewater treatment. That's how I ended up in my career as a research and development professional in wastewater and industrial treatment. Thank you.
Fantastic, fantastic. And our last panelist, Shivali Joshi.
Yes, hello everyone. Thank you, Dhruv and others for having me on this panel. It's truly amazing to share my experiences because I have gone through this whole process of transitioning from academia to industry recently, like a little more than 1 year ago. So it's still pretty recent. So let me quickly introduce myself and then we can get started on the other questions. So I'm Shivali and I am an R&D scientist at ChipCare currently. I joined the company in August 2020 following a postdoctoral fellowship in virology. So I was studying hepatitis viruses just like Ella and immunology from the University of Calgary. Prior to that, I completed my PhD in biotech from National Institute of Virology in India, where I was working on development and evaluation of vaccines against hepatitis E. So it's really been very hepatitis and like vaccine, basically, very similar for PhD and postdoc. My role currently here is to develop research projects to test the utility of our alpha system. So alpha system is basically like the prototype instrument that our company is launching to develop other assays that are of growing interest in this new market now. So basically I'm trying to set up some immunology assays onto our existing instrument. And like this is my role overall. It involves a lot of supervision. It does not involve that much of lab work anymore, but like, training junior scientists, a lot of report writing, and we can discuss along the way.
Fantastic. So I think you've all brought up some very interesting nuggets of information in your introductions that I'd like to probe a little bit more. I think I might start off by asking each of you what about your decision-making process about going into industry. Did you always know that was something that you wanted to do, or did you change your mind throughout the course of your postdoc? And maybe we'll start there, and then I can ask you lots more questions as we go. And of course, anyone, as we're having our discussions, if you have any questions, please do put them in the chat. Maybe, is there anybody that has a burning answer that wants to start the conversation off? That I'll start at the top of my list. So we're talking about decision-making, how you decided to go into industry. So Adetoyese, do you want to tell us a little bit about your thought process there?
Yeah, thank you very much. So even though I still say today that I love academics, I just love it because it comes with some benefits. For example, you can manage your time, you can dictate a lot of things. However, when I started my postdoc, initially I didn't want to do a postdoc because I've seen friends doing postdoc and they feel stuck in postdoc. So that has been my fear in doing a postdoc when I was doing my PhD. But because I saw an opportunity, I've been trying to I did my PhD in Hong Kong, and I've been trying to come to Canada. So postdoc gave me the platform to come to Canada, and that was why I jumped at it. However, my plan is 1 year and I'm done. I don't want to do a postdoc more than 1 year. But a lot of things happen. And then I decided, okay, fine, let me look at staying in academics for a long time. But when I started applying and nothing is forthcoming, then in the middle of my postdoc, I decided to switch to looking at industry jobs, government jobs. And I can tell you, we get there. It's not easy. There's a lot of things I have to do, but I decided to venture more into industry or government in the middle of my postdoc years. Thank you. That's after 2 years when I started my postdoc.
Right. So something you mentioned there, I think, is very common in that, people start applying for academic positions and then they notice the landscape is very tough. And so then they start thinking of alternatives. So that's great. And another thing that you brought up was sometimes location factors in, right? Where you want to end up kind of sways where you start applying for jobs. Yes. So that's great. Ella?
So I think, deeply in my heart, I always wanted to have industry job, but I didn't know where to start, how to jump and what to do exactly. So, and also I know that I wanted to move from Poland. I knew that I will be leaving my, country and settling somewhere else. And postdoc is a great opportunity, as you said, Emma. So and also I was married, so I had husband at that time, so we came here as a family, and I came pregnant with my first kid coming in. So postdoc was perfect to start a family, actually, which I think for a woman is important.
Yeah.
And maybe we can mention this here. And yeah, and I was in a very good lab with with great support, but I was also looking who is successful in academia and who is not, and what the career path I could have there. And I didn't find room for myself because I knew that I not necessarily want to end up as a PI, because the responsibility for applying for grants and having people depending on you, and it's so hard, as we all know. and I had another kid in the meantime. So with 2 small children, I couldn't imagine myself to be successful PI. And then I started searching for like really into industry, which I couldn't also find. And in the meantime, I found a job in Applied Virology Institute in Edmonton at the University of Alberta, which is great. And I think all the universities should have a place like this, because it is still university, but a little bit like industry, because it was like, you know, we were making vaccine for hepatitis C. We had investor who was giving us money. Like, it's not a startup, it's, you know, it's like this something in between, which I was so grateful for, because it gave me like, I made sure that, oh, I don't want to go back to academia to, like, you know, basic research. I want to pursue into industry, like, further. And so this is where I am. Now I am in.
So I think you brought up also a number of good points here. One is that you were looking for role models, both in academia and in industry, to sort of gauge, you know, what am I going for here? What are, you know, what is the benefit of these different environments? And, you know, the lack of maybe having those role models and representatives to look to, I think is very important. And then another issue that another nugget that you mentioned was, you know, the ability to pursue a sort of industry-like position while you're doing your postdoc, to sort of get a bit more of a practical flavor for what industry is like, was a great opportunity for you, right? So I think
it is.
Yeah. Okay. So I've jotted that down, and I think that that's something that, you know, if people are considering industry, that you know, checking out those kinds of opportunities are really one of the best first steps to making that transition. You also mentioned some, you know, some things that you were considering about family, raising a family, about having, you know, a partner, and this issue of the sort of 2-body challenge comes up a lot, right? So do you, in your experience, have you found that the industry setting was better or the same, or, you know, more challenging for starting a family versus academia, I suppose?
You know, I am.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to say, maybe they both have their pluses and then their minuses.
Okay, so I think that overall academia gives you this feeling that you are taken care of and your family is taken care of, like, you know, that you have a flexibility. I know that it depends on PI and then, you know, the place where you are at. And I was so lucky to to join the company, which gives me exact same flexibility as academia gave. Yes, so it all depends on your employer. Yes, employer.
So that's something that people should be looking out for, right? I mean, I know people, when they apply, they're sort of like, sometimes I'll take what I can get. But you know, you are a highly trained, highly qualified individual. And so you will have choices, and you have to find the right fit for you. And so, looking at those policies before accepting a position is probably a wise idea.
Yes. Right. I would never left academia, probably, if I, you know, because like now I have 3 kids, okay? So my story continues, and they are still young. So, you know, and now with COVID even, yes, like I get phone calls every week because of something. So, and as a mother and as a woman, like, you know, you have, like you wear those 2 hats all the times on you. So, and I want to pursue my career. I cannot be stay-home mom. I know this. So I was looking for a place which will give me flexibility, and the same as academia gives you in terms of time management.
Right. And I think that's important too. So as we're giving advice and sort of sharing our stories, everybody's different. Everybody's situations are different. And so, you know, some people will have families, some people won't, but I think it's great that we have this diverse panel that, you know, can share all these different experiences and strategies. Okay, so Mohita, Sharma, do you want to tell us a little bit about your decision-making process?
Sure, Emma. So I can definitely share that. I think I was a bit more strategic in picking the right projects because I always knew I have to get into industry. I didn't tell about my education, but I had bachelor's in microbiology, master's in biotech, and PhD in environmental and industrial biotechnology. So for me, I always did, you know, applied research projects. I knew this is the path I want to take, and I was very picky in, you know, what would help me go there. It did took me a lot of time because I had to do 5 years of postdoc. But again, I didn't waste that time. Like I made sure I'd have, you know, high impact publications. I have a very strong academic, you know, portfolio as well. Just in case things don't work out, I have to do the other thing. So I tried to balance it, but I was definitely, you know, very picky on my projects. And I also worked with cross-functional teams during my industrial postdoc with Shell, which gave me, you know, a very good insight as to how business processes actually work, how different departments talk to each other, what kind of qualities you need once you get a full-time industry job. And sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
And I just wanted to mention, like, I always took, you know, career advice from anyone I could find in my profession, ask them for, you know, introductions in the industry and observe industry trends, like what kind of companies are hiring, like what is going on. For example, I can say like there's a lot of, you know, hiring right now in like vaccine companies or, you know, biotech companies. So see the trends, like what's going on, what kind of skills that you have could be used for that industry. Like be very, I would say, you know, active on that side. And also I always did multidisciplinary research projects where I could interact with different postdocs from different departments and learn something and teach them something. So, you know, you basically try to diversify your skill set and try to learn as much as you can before you go to industry, because they don't want people with very, you know, let's say niche knowledge. They want you to have a broader knowledge, just in case the industry, you know, are getting into new segments, you are prepared for it and you have something to contribute. So I think that always helps.
Because I think that's a thing in industry, right? Is that you need to be flexible and be able to shift projects depending on the direction that the company wants to go in, right? So you said a lot of things there that I want to follow up on. So one was seeing the trends and being able to ask people, you know, what's going on, what's hot, you know. You need a good network for that. You know, if I wanted to get into industry and wanted to figure that, I don't know everyone is an academic that I know. So I don't know, how do you know who to ask? And maybe what you were saying about, you know, getting involved in a variety of projects where there are different folks that may know these things, that was one of your strategies, right?
Yeah, and I would say I was a bit lucky on that side because I was a lead researcher for a project at, you know, University of Calgary, which had 20 industrial partners. So I was presenting in all those, you know, follow-up meetings and giving technical talks, and that made me help build those relationships with industry partners and, you know, do a follow-up discussions with them. I understood like what are the good conferences to go to if you have to give a talk where you will get some visibility, and then, you know, be prepared, have follow-up questions ready. Like, you know, as soon as you're back from a conference, you identify people who could make a difference in your life and at least teach you something or connect you with somebody. So that was my strategy. Like, be shameless and asking for introductions. Like, do not hesitate to, you know, people are actually, what I noticed and learned the hard way is people are always willing and happy to help, but you have to take the initiative of going out and, you know, asking them.
Right. You have to be bold.
Exactly.
Right. So you were also mentioning that sort of industry-like experience was really important for you, right? And then it gave you access to all of those people that you could talk to and get, you know, the skinny on what's out there. So yeah, I think there's a lot of themes that are starting to emerge from our discussions here. So that's really interesting. I liked what you said about opportunities where you could learn, but also teach. So that you could lead, but also, work in a group kind of environment. And is that something that's important in industry?
I think that's I would say, the most important skill to have, because it's all about teamwork, right? You are just doing a small part of a big project. And if you cannot work in a team setup, you are bound to fail, especially like in a role like what I'm doing right now, which is product management. You are really, you're like a director of an orchestra, and you have to give the instructions to all different departments, and, control the chords and control the instructions. But you have no direct authority on anybody. It's just that you have to make them feel that you're part of a big team. This is your specific role in that team, and, execute well for that specific role. That's all you can do.
Right. And sorry, go ahead.
And I just wanted to also mention one very important point is, like, because my my postdoc was sponsored by MyTax, in association with Shell. MyTax is a very good, I would say, a bridging place to get into industry, because they teach you and, make you aware of so many skills through the programs they offer. Like, I did a course on invention to innovation, like for lab to market commercialization through BD School of Business. That was also sponsored by MyTax, which is a fantastic program. And I did like courses on foundations of project management, leadership, time management, and all these, had a very important role in developing the skill set that you need for transitioning to industry.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to move on, although I have a million other questions for pretty much everybody. Okay, Nishil, do you want to tell us about your decision-making process?
Right through my graduate studies at University of Waterloo, I was weighing in several factors. What is the correct personality do I have? Do I fit in academy or do I fit in industry? So first thing for me is to understand where I actually fit in. So which shoe I should put on. So for me, through my PhD studies, I was looking for opportunities where I can work purely on academic projects. There are projects which are purely meant for academia, and there are projects which are more of translatory notion, like more of industrial projects. As Mohita mentioned, some MyTech's scholarships and all really help me pursue some of the industrial projects like that. So first for me, I have to take a decision what I really want. Towards the end of my PhD, I really understood that academy is not where I wanted to be in, something more towards the industry side. But how can you move to industry? There are several factors, and you really need to know what are the transferable skills that you really can take from your academic as well as research career and put forth and sell it to the industry. Industry is all about receiving your skills and adapting to it. You are basically evolving as a academician or as a PhD or postdoctoral researcher. You have several good qualities that can be a good fit for industry. It's only about how you can adapt to it, how you can really transfer it. So industry, recently there is a trend in industry. They try to understand that a lot. Nowadays, you can see a lot of industries started appreciating your background from research and several years of education. It's only a matter of time that how you can transfer this. So I took a lot of efforts and tried a lot of networking and tried to understand what it looks like if you want to get in industry. Like, how do you start? So that 1 year of my postdoc after my graduation from PhD, I was dedicating my time more towards it, along with my mm, other pursuits in starting a startup and stuffs like that. So I had a research project where we had a patent interest, and we were looking at starting a startup, and that all give us some insights into how it be like to be in the industrial world. So I used that opportunity really to improve my skills and to really convey, like when you submit a resume to an industry, you really need to convey in not just technical terms about your project, how well you can manage a project, what sort of projects you have done, how did you go about starting a project as an individual, like are you a self-starter, have you started a project from the scratch and finished, have you managed the budget. So That postdoc, 1 year of my postdoc really helped me to provide that added edge that I can put in the resume. Because once you start talking to the industry people, they want to always hear those experiences, hear your talents. So I would say postdoc if you use your postdoc the right way, and that can really help you to get into the field where you want to be. If you want to be in industry, you can use your postdoc in that way. If you want to be in academic field, you can use your postdoc to get high quality impact publication, a lot of conferences that way. So postdoc is also helped me a lot. So that is how my experiences go about.
So, I mean, that's one of the issues that I really want to dig into here is how valuable everybody thought their postdocs were to a career in industry. Could you have gone straight from your PhD and skipped a postdoc? Or do you feel like that time doing your postdoc really helped you, build up that inventory of skills to understand yourself better, to develop the boldness maybe to go into industry? We'll stick with Nishil right now because we're still going to do the finish this round, but I think there's a lot more questions. So, well, Nishil, do you feel that your postdoc was critical to your success?
Yes, for me, that postdoc really helped me in landing my first job. For me, I always wanted to get into an industrial job, which is not just a regular job, but something that helps me involved in a lot of technology projects along with research and development. But that doesn't mean that I should look for applied and what I can make an impact, right? So for me to get into some industrial positions or research and development roles like this, many of these positions, if you look through the job description, they clearly tells your skill sets in writing a proposal. When you are doing a PhD, you are more like a research assistant helping other postdoc or helping the PI doing some minor projects or completing your thesis. But as a postdoc, you took a lead role in your project. You become the starter of the project. If your professor is really supportive, and if you be upfront to your professor at the beginning of the postdoc. My professor really knows that after what I'm looking forward is an industrial career. So I told him right at the beginning of my postdoc that I am trying to transition to the industry. This is how I wanted to have what I see myself after the end of 1 year of postdoc. So both you and professor have an idea of what Nishil is actually going to do. How can my professor help me and I also help him in return to bring up new projects. Some projects like industrial projects, especially MyTechs and all, they give a lot of incentives to start your own industry projects. Apart from that, you have several other funding. You write proposals on that. That way, you try to network with a lot of industry people, start this one-to-one conversation. Your outlook towards research also changes from how different is academia and industrial research, right? So that postdoc period was more about fine-tuning my transferable skills. I had a lot of transferable skills from my PhD. We all have good transferable skills. It's all about how to polish it, how to fine-tune it to make it better and phrase good in your resume that you are ready to go and sit before the interview.
So some of the things that you said, I think kind of speak to that. One is you need to know yourself,
yes,
right? And I think part
key.
of that is creating an inventory of your experience. It's not just writing a CV because that's cold on paper, but anticipating when you go into the interview that they're going to ask you to demonstrate when did you show leadership, when did you be part of a team, when did you I don't know, other sorts. I think maybe coming up with a list of questions that interviewers are most likely to ask you, and then having sort of taking bits of your CV and being able to provide tangible examples of when you've done all of those things is good preparation, right? When you're going.
That's where all this career center and the alumni network will actually help. Because career center, if you look at good universities, all the universities have a career center where there are professionals who can help you to really gauge your plus and negatives, right? What are your plus points and what are your negative points? How can you everyone has negative points. We have to understand that. But how can you improve that negative points to make it positive and become an added edge to it? So that inventory, literally, you word it right, Emma. So that inventory was a key. Myself looking, I created I would say myself, I created an Excel sheet to really understand what are my key skills that I want and what do I currently have, how do I achieve it. And I worked through that over the period of that 1 year to attain that. But
Right.
even I'm still learning. It's a long curve. Still learning.
Right. Okay, so I'm gonna move us along, but I think we're gonna probably end up circling back to a lot of the things that have been brought up in this round. Shivali, we don't want to neglect you. Tell us about your decision making.
So I totally agree with everyone else on different points. So Ella started off with postdoc is a great time to have kids, right? I totally agree because it's so flexible. You and if you have a good supervisor, then
Right.
that journey becomes really, really good. But on the other hand, my kid is still only 3.5 years, and the
Right.
company supports me to any extent, especially in these COVID times, right? They go to daycares, they're sent back home, and then you have to work from home, whatever. So there is like, it has its own pros and cons, but I think as far as the mat leave and having kids is concerned, it's fine with the university, it's fine with the industry as well. I agree with Mohita on her strategic, job search, which is really good. So I didn't do it as systematically as she did, but I clearly knew that I wanted to get into industry. Although my supervisor really, even today, she wants me to go back to academia and, apply for assistant professorships and progress my career that way. I totally had a very supportive PI in my PhD and postdoc, no doubts about that. But I also was very clear about the fact that for PhD, because I did everything in preclinical trials, so it was all mice and monkeys, and I was like, I'm not getting into mice anymore. I'm done with mice. So for postdoc, I wanted to go do some clinical translational research. So I got into this, patient-oriented research, getting into clinical trials, being involved in all these projects. And luckily, again, I had a lab that provided me all those opportunities for running clinical trials, for being clinical coordinator at certain times in certain projects. So all these experiences with industry, because you do have to then report to the company directly. I was like the point of contact, the technical point of contact. So you do have to start speaking in a language that they would understand. It cannot be like super technical that no one else follows, only you know what you're talking. So, those skills, you can develop them over time, but you do have to put in some efforts. You'll make a lot of mistakes in the beginning, but as time progresses, you get better and better at it. I 100% agree with Nishil with the Excel sheet that he's talking about. So he said Excel sheets are important for listing down your positives and negatives. But I can tell you any industry right now uses Excel sheets to manage everything. And Mohita can maybe, back that up later on. But it's like you have a certain project, for example, literature review. If we are doing in postdoc or in your grad school, what we would usually do is download papers, put it in a folder. Maybe it goes to become a review from your side, but nothing more than that.
Right.
What you could instead do is start preparing an Excel sheet. So your column A would be X et al. Column B would be when the paper was published. Column C is how many patients were in the study. Column D is like ethnicity of patients. So it'll be a massive Excel file, but in the end, what you are generating can directly be translated into a review, a paper, whatever. And like you learn so much from it because it's all in front of your eyes. So this is really important in industry. It's called different things. It's called root cause analysis. It's called FMEA or failure mode error analysis. So these are different methodologies that are used, but it basically involves preparing massive Excel files and knowing how to use Excel really, really well.
So you bring up an interesting point here. I think a lot of us have our, our grad school kind of approaches to organizing information and doing things. But the things that you're talking about sound like business training or methods training. Did you just absorb that kind of stuff through your experience, or did you, go out and take extra courses? I think Mohita, you were mentioning, you're talking about commercialization and things like that. I would have no idea how to do anything like that. So, were there extra things that you had to learn to sort of sharpen your technical skills? Or did you just absorb it through your experience?
I think the first thing we have to always remember is we are innovators, and we are, if we don't know anything, we can innovate if there is not a solution available. And especially, I think postdocs and PhD, especially STEM professionals, can do so much improvements on the business side. There is a huge gap there. And that's what I realized when I joined this role. The course that I did, which I mentioned, from BD School of Business, that was, lab to market commercialization. They gives you a very good insight as to how to basically manage information, and how should you do your market research, how should you do your strategic thinking, and how to really commercialize a product. So I did, received a bit of training from that. But besides that, I used a lot of, I would say, project management softwares in order to understand, like, how information flows from one department to another. I learned how to make process maps. I didn't do that before, but I learned it on the job myself. And then also there are good team members who teach you some of these skills if you're willing to learn. If you are sure that you're a continuous learner and you're ready for any new challenge, I think that helps. And also, I learned how to do automations of my workflows. Like, I had none of these skills before I joined this role. But how to integrate it with different, technologies, like with your Outlook, with your, any other tool software that you're using in your company. How do you automate your processes? Because it's all about what can you do to save time and get to the results more faster than, any traditional way that the company is doing. If you can learn those skills, and I'm sure anybody can learn it, especially if you have done a PhD, you are an innovator. You should have that confidence that it's not difficult. You have done the most difficult things in your life. These are easy things that you can easily learn and fix.
So Shivali, do you agree? Was that your approach too? Taking extra, kind of training yourself in other areas?
I did not actually take up any formal courses, but as I mentioned, I was involved in a variety of clinical trials from companies like GSK, Transgene, Alberta. These are pretty big companies. So they, I mean, when you start working with them, you automatically do have to follow their SOPs. You pick up the language that the company talks unknowingly, but that helps over time. And that's how I think I developed these skills.
Right. So what's coming through here, what I'm hearing is more and more that industry-like experience, or industry experience, was really critical to picking up the technical lingo, to expanding your your professional development skills. And then there's another route that you can take, which is maybe taking courses. And I think my tax offers a bunch of different courses you can take along those lines as well. Okay, I feel like I've been monopolizing the conversation. I'm going to hand the mic over to Dhruv, who I think has a list of questions to ask the panel. We may have some questions in the chat as well. Dhruv, I'll let you ask some questions and I'll just check the chat in the meantime.
Sure. Thank you, Emma. Thank you so much. And huge thank you to all the panelists for taking your time and sharing your insights on the job hunt process and how you transitioned. You have talked about a lot of important things, like the importance of networking, planning ahead, strategizing, learning the industry lingo, the importance of transferable skills, and recognizing that we have those. So this is all very positive and very nice, but I would like to venture into the dark side a little bit. So you must have had difficulties finding your industry job, at least some of you, right? So what was your darkest hour when you were job hunting? Were there some challenges you encountered specifically for your transition? And then how did you overcome and how did you adapt to those challenges? And I'll start with Adetoyese.
Thank you very much. And like you said, yes, I've experienced that moment very well. And my first major challenge is when you say a job that you believe that you are the right fit for the job, but they come back with probably you are too technical. So that's my first challenge in terms of, for example, there's this job, I can go into a little bit details about it. So we've been doing a lot of projects. For one thing that I appreciate about my postdoc is it gave me the opportunity to manage a lot of projects. So even though I'm doing my own research, I have a lot of PhD students and master students that I'm overseeing because our research group is so large. So we're divided into different subgroups. So each group have their name and their focus. So I manage that group. I'm kind of like the overseer of that group. I only just report once in a while to the PI. And there are this project that we're doing with a company in Calgary. It's a popular oil company. And we've done a lot of projects for them, with them. So I've had a lot of meetings with them. So when I see this job, sincerely looking at all the job description, I see that no, this is my job. And because even when I was doing the interview, everyone on the panel, except the HR person, I've seen them before. We've chatted before. We've been on the same table before. So it's kind of like a walkover interview for me. But the response they gave to me why they couldn't give me the job is they feel I would come in and I would be too technical for them. So that was challenging for me because I felt very bad. And the reason why I still remember it today is because they actually gave me the news on my birthday. So I can't forget that because I was like, no, that's my job. So that's been my own, dark moment in terms of people thinking you are too overqualified, you are too technical, So what helped me to actually move out of that dark moment was I actually had a number of mentors, that actually trained me to, on how to present your facts during an interview, not to sound too technical, and to be able to incorporate those lingo that we've mentioned, industrial lingo, into what you've done. So then I realized that, I have a lot of skills from my postdoc that actually I can give them example without them feeling that, you're too much. Because most of the people, for example, my first job that I got after my postdoc was government job. And I remember then my manager, he was just doing his bachelor then. So they might feel like you're coming in and you're going to, based on your experience in the academics, but there's a way to kind of prepare yourself, in an interview to give examples that you let them know that I've done this and this, I can do this and this and this, but not being too technical. So that has been my own experience, with that moment. I've had it a lot, a number of jobs that I can give examples to, but the key thing is I actually went through mentorship process to know how do you prepare for the interview? How do you write your resume that it will not sound too technical? And how do you present yourself that you can still use your examples from your postdoc, from your PhD, however, it will not sound too technical. So I have to learn that. And it took me 1.5 years to actually get another job, the job that I wanted when I finished my postdoc. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I'm sorry that you had to go through that on your birthday. It's kind of a bummer that you had a network, you worked with those people, and it didn't work to your advantage. But then you had to join back to your skills of developing your transferable skills and talking about them. And you mentioned that it took you like 1.5 years to try and repackage your resume and your interviews. Yes. On a related note, I would like to move to Ella. Ella, you see that Adetoyese talked about his involvement in interdisciplinary research groups. I know that your current role is very focused. It's on protein purification. So did you ever feel that it was a hindrance? And probably because Future Fields is based out of University of Alberta, kind of. Maybe you were aware of your colleagues there. Was it ever to your disadvantage or did it work in your favor? And please also talk about any other challenges that you faced during this transition process.
Okay, so I don't think I had challenges other than finding a good, a position in the place where I am at. Okay, Edmonton is not famous for having, industry developed. Like if you start looking, there is a lot of opportunities on both sides, like, east or west, not that much in the prairies with my set of skills and what my interest was in. And also, like, family is a big thing for me, and I don't think my family is ready to move to places. So that was the biggest challenge. And that's why I was really grateful for this opportunity to work for AVI at university, and having, making sure that industry is the place for me. And when I just, my current position at Future Fields, so it's a company which is part of the cellular agriculture industry. And I saw a job offer and I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm applying. I applied and I got the job, okay? So, and the same happened with AVI. I applied and I got the job, and I had to, skills that they were looking for at that time. And here, same. And yes, my job is focused, but I'll also, like, I am involved in many decision making, because we are, okay, I have to start with this, that we are a startup, a very young startup, okay? So we all do everything, whatever we can do, including like advertising. So if you are interested in finding a job, check our website, okay? And like we are building a company, which I really like, because actually this gives me a lot of opportunities to develop new skills. And yeah, I'm not in a very, also industry we are part of is very new, yes, it's not established. So I am involved very much in all the regulatory path, because we don't know what to follow, pharma or food, and we are in between. So, we have to create this. And yes, like my job description is very specific focused, and my whole career led me to get this job. But right now I am doing all sorts of things and I am learning. And yeah, they gave me this opportunity to learn also through actual doing things. So I don't know, did I explore?
Oh, that was wonderful. Very, very inspiring for postdocs, grad students who are in the pure sciences like me, especially, who wonder if they can make it in industry where there's more of an applied angle. It was great that you
have to apply.
Yeah.
You just have to apply.
Yeah. You talked about the severe limitation of being geographically limited because of family reasons or various other reasons. Sometimes people just don't want to move because their life situation is such. As postdocs, many of us have families, and it definitely is a limitation. And the importance of looking for new companies, small scale biotech companies. People are mostly looking at large corporations, and probably it's difficult to get in. You need a network to get in. But if you can, like you said, enter into a company which is just starting up, it can really set you up for success later. So that was great. That was awesome. That's exactly what we were looking for. Yeah. Nishil, do you have anything to add to that? Were there any challenges you faced? Did you ever feel you were like overqualified for jobs and it was getting in the way of finding your industry job?
That's an interesting question. I strongly agree to what Adetoyese has mentioned earlier. I had one funny question during an interview in the beginning of my career search. How do you sound not like Sheldon Cooper in Big Bang Theory? Right? This is the same question that made me realize the common misconception in the industry towards PhDs and postdocs. How do you break that barrier, right? That's the key. Industry always look for fun-loving, team working, outgoing sort of category. How do you portray yourself what industry needs? That has been the key. And once you started to realize how you can overcome that, that's when you started to see some progress in how you can attain what you want. So there are so much qualities that we have that industry sometimes overlook, that they think that, okay, we are only driven on a single thesis project, but you can portray it as more you are a teamwork person, you work with the team, you know how to manage a project. So you have to break that barrier. So breaking that barrier at the initial stage and really conveying what you really have is a key. So overcoming that, I strongly agree. This term called overqualified for several positions there was like, it's okay to fail. I still think that I got my first interview maybe after 30 or 40 applications. Even it just HR code, even after 30 to 40, I didn't have at the beginning when I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have a mentor at the beginning. I didn't know how to approach a mentor. I don't know how to go about with this process, right? So it's okay to fail. It's okay to, as Yela mentioned, you have to apply. You have to try. Unless you try, you cannot know what you're missing on, right? Like as Adetoyese mentioned, he sat on an interview where there are a lot of panelists who knew, but he think that he will surely get the job. But at least at the end of the interview, he got that this is something that you sound too technical. Unless you had applied or unless you have tried it, you never knew. What there is always not a right opportunity. The opportunity is when you make it. So you have to go after it. So it's okay to fail. Everyone has gone through this. It's all about breaking that problem.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's really motivating. Create your own opportunity and really go for it. Like deal with setbacks. And okay, Ila has something to add. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I just want to add that you also shouldn't listen to advisors from you, like, colleagues or stuff, because sometimes they are just jealous. Because I was advised not to apply to AVI position because I didn't have, full skill sets. And I was like, oh, okay, I will try. Like, who you are to tell me? And it was like, a person at the same position as me. And and I got the job. And so sometimes it's good not to listen to some advisors who want you to set back, or unknowingly trying to.
Yeah, we get that a lot during grad school and postdoc from supervisors and from senior colleagues, even our friends. You're right, it's not good to maybe you listen to them, but don't believe in them. Believe in yourself. That's the right way to go about it. Yeah, I don't think that they mean ill. Sometimes they're just not aware that there are a lot of avenues available out there, and you can identify where you fit in yourself only. Yeah. So I would like to move to Shivali to know her insights into facing the challenges. Did you ever feel like imposter syndrome that's talked about a lot in academia? And how did you, if there was, how did you deal with it?
Not so much the imposter syndrome, fortunately, but what I realized is that you have to follow up a lot of times between interview rounds. So I think it took me like 8 months after my first interview to get into the position that I am today. But it basically involves you let aside your ego and keep emailing whoever was the hiring manager. Basically, he was responsible for the decision. So you have to be persistent and patient. I just learned that along the way, and I think it is a challenge because you really feel so bad when you don't hear back quickly. That you're like, oh, stop, I'm not going to apply anymore. But no, it's not true. You just have to keep following up. It's because industry has so many other things to do that HR actually goes a lot of times on low priority. Now that I am a hiring manager, I understand how it is to get back to candidates. So I know the other side of the story now. And all I'm saying is, please, after an interview, follow up. If you don't hear in a week or two, follow up. Don't hear back, follow up in a month. Don't just give away that opportunity that you you could make out of the interview. So yeah, that's one sort of a challenge, but yeah, you have to learn to deal with it and follow up, and that's it. You'll get there one day.
That's great advice for all of our participants. I mean, the persistence that you showed, following up for 8 months, if I remember correctly, you said. So
yeah, 8
that's
months. Also, I was moving from Calgary to Toronto. So
wow.
when I first contacted the VP of this company was after they put up this post on LinkedIn. But by then I was still in Calgary and I had a good 5-6 months left in my postdoc. But when I got back to Toronto, obviously that position had disappeared. It was not seen anywhere on LinkedIn or Indeed or anywhere else. But I just, I kept emailing him, following up with him on LinkedIn. And then I had like 3 rounds of interview conducted in 1 week. And then like 3 days later, I had the job offer. So sometimes if it has to happen, it will happen fast. But looking back, I think if I would not have followed, I was not going to get this anyway.
I see. This is all a part of the process of tempering our steel. When I was in high school, I read a book by Nikolai Ostrovsky, How the Steel Was Tempered. And I listening to you, I was recalling that book, the amount of persistence, patience we have to show to get into the industry jobs. So I will move to Mohita. Mohita, will you share your challenges finding your first job?
Absolutely. So I can definitely say that I was told a lot of times that you're overqualified, especially for an oil and gas industry. And I had 30 publications. I had all the Research Excellence Award. I had all the prestigious fellowships. Like I did part of my research in Europe. So I had a lot of geographical, experience also working with different cultures, different organizations, and different, I would say, geographies. And even then it was so difficult. And when things like this happen, you definitely start questioning what's not working. And I try to speak to my professor and ask, like, what can I do more? I'm losing track of applying. I have applied so many places and I've done excellent projects, like, and she's like, you're doing everything right, just keep trying. And I think in terms of timing, when I was transitioning when COVID hit also. So I was supposed to go to Shell and stay in Houston and do a lot of research projects there and have a lot of face-to-face interaction, and that didn't happen. And the oil prices were in negative at that time, so there was a hiring freeze. So there were two things: I could have just waited and continued my industrial postdoc, or I decided I have to be more practical and also look beyond big organizations, look into startups, what just all other panelists are mentioning, and be more flexible. All you need right now is to get the experience to transition to industry, and you can always go to a better organization later. Your most important thing is to get that experience of transitioning. So don't just think that 3-4 companies and this is where I'm going to apply, this is what I need. I wasted a lot of time on that, I feel. And so you have to be more flexible and more broad in your approach when you're applying, and you will doubt your self-worth sometimes, and you will feel dejected. But you have to remember there is light at the end of the tunnel. You will attract the energy around you with your thoughts. If you're positive things are going to happen to you. So stay positive and always accept constructive feedback. It's good for you. Like if somebody's telling you your CV is bad, you have to improve it, that's a good insight you got, right? So try to work on it. Don't give up. Focus on things you can control. You can apply for jobs, so that's something you can control. You are getting the job or not, this is something you cannot control. So focus on things which is in your hands, and help others like you would like to be helped. So there might be a position you see where you are not a direct fit, but somebody in your let's say in your ecosystem or a fellow postdoc could be a very good fit. Try to help those people, because it's all about karma also. I believe in it a lot. If you are doing something good for somebody else, that good is going to come back to you. So everybody's in the same boat who are trying to transition. If there is something you can help somebody else with, take that step and help them, and you will get the help back in one way or the other. And what I learned during my interview processes was, like, you have to be very prepared. There are so many resources available. LinkedIn has a full set of tools where you can, practice how to give interviews. What are the typical behavior questions they ask? These are the things you can control and be prepared for. So I would, highly recommend follow all those free tools that are available. Ask them smart questions at the end of the interview. Show that you have genuine interest in the company. You are not just, applying for the sake of applying. You have done your homework. You have done your research. See who is going to interview you. Do a bit of research on that person. See what would click with them. It's almost like, speed dating. You have to look smart. You have to speak smartly and prepare a perfect pitch talk why you are special, why they should hire you. If you have done your homework well, there is a high probability you will get the job. But you have to do this before going for an interview. That will be my 2 cents.
Well, that's really insightful. That's fantastic that you know how to prepare so well, and I'm sure that we all will benefit from this advice. Yeah. So I would like to talk about the interview questions maybe later, but I would like to just shift gears and move a step back now. So you have all transitioned and you have seen the change happen over the course of so many years in your career. Was it easy to adapt to that change from academia to industry? And maybe we can start with Ella, because I know you were working on related projects, but still maybe the deadlines were more strict in the industry. Maybe the pace was faster. Was it a challenge to adapt to it? How did you do it?
So it wasn't challenging for me because, that's my personality. My personality fits to lots of changes, instability. I love dealing with crises, okay? But my transition was very emotional for me because I realized that the company which hired me, they weren't actually sure fully if that's possible to use Drosophila as a expression system, because we have we are part of new industry with a new platform for expressing proteins, which in my eyes, academic eyes, wasn't confirmed enough, okay, that it's doable. So when I saw that there is not that much data on it, I was shocked and I was like, oh my goodness, what did I do? What did I do? Why did I do? It was very emotional, but I started working really hard and proving myself. And I think this is the skill I brought from academia, yes? We have to see, we have to confirm a million times that to believe that it's true. And yeah, so the transition itself was more challenging than I expected and emotionally, but only because the uncertainty which I faced about the whole system and itself. So I didn't know how startups operate fully. I didn't know that you don't have to have tons of data to get money as it is in academia. Yes, to get a grant you have to have completed study almost and and lots of data. So yeah, for startups is different, and I wasn't aware of that, and that was very stressful and emotional for I think a month and a half. And I had to prove myself that it will be working and it will be successful, and yeah, we are good to go forward. So that's about the transition.
Yeah, that's really interesting to know. You started with a startup company and it has its own sets of challenges when you start working there and not sure about the grant, you're not sure about the project. And so there's a lot of things going on when you're in a nascent company. Thank you for sharing that. Adetoyese, do you have something to share? How did you manage your change from academia to industry? You had a 3.5 year postdoc, and then you moved to industry. Did the change in environment affect you at all? How did you manage that?
Thank you very much. So just to clarify, so my first change is not my current job. So I first got a job with the government of Alberta. So in a ministry, and the same thing like the job I talk about, this same ministry, they funded our research. We've actually done a lot of work hand in hand with the people in the industry, in that ministry. So my first shock was what I thought, how I thought the job, the nature of the job is not what when I entered into the job. At first I had this, shock. So basically there's a lot of bureaucracy with working with government. So even though you're doing a lot of work, a lot of policies, you are reviewing a lot of applications for grants, but I find out that there is a lot of bureaucracies that you're working as part of the department team, but your work is kind of suppressed a bit. So whatever you're doing, you don't get to present. So like it's the senior directors that present, the executive directors that present, even though you do a lot of the work. And I found that a little bit surprising for me. So, and I adjusted, but from the moment I realized that, okay, I think this might not be the right choice for me. So I started looking for another job. And my senior director was very open with me. We had this discussion because, like I said, it's been part of the different TAC committee, that I've worked with on my project when I was doing my postdoc in the university. So he called me and said, I think you're not happy with this job, and I was frank with him. I told him, yeah. So these are my reasons. And he said, yeah, that he understands that most people, when you come from the university, this is what you think the government is and the likes, but majorly there's a lot of bureaucracies with it. So he helped me to kind of look at other departments that I can actually apply to, but because of the nature of the economic then in Alberta, some departments were not hiring, but he helped me to find the right department that my skill set will actually be more useful than the department that I was then. So, but finally I got another job. This is my current job. And I can tell you that it's very easy for me settling into my current job than my previous job, just because it still have this research element into it, even though I interact majorly with industry. But because of that research element, I kind of tend to control a lot of things. I currently manage, a 10 million grant. And so it's kind of, seeing me now. Initially, when I was in the university, I managed those piece by piece, but now I oversee a number of, researchers. They report back to me on how they're going so that I can report back to the industry funder that is funding the project. So it's easier for me, this current job, than my previous job. So to summarize, what I would say is that I find it because they have majorly the same characteristics. I find it easier now, but government was a little bit, shocking for me when I got into that job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Yeah, the change in culture really can affect us. We've talked about emotional change with Ella, and we've talked about change in culture that you experience when you move to the government job. And yes, you're right, the heart really yearns for what we are used to, what we enjoy doing. And if we can find a job where we can get the satisfaction, that's most important, more important probably than the money, which initially is the attraction when moving to industry, but then that attraction would fade away soon. So thank you, that was fantastic. I would move to Shivali now. Shivali, I can see that your focus was very academic driven. So you had probably the most abrupt change, if I may say. Was it easy to adapt to this change? How did you do it?
So one very stark change between industry and lab setting is the fact that in the industry you have to work as a team. So if something fails, you really don't have time to ponder over which reagent didn't work well, why it didn't work well. You don't have time to dig into details that we are used to doing basically when we are in grad school or postdoc. So here then you get into your meetings all different kinds of people, different perspectives. So for example, mine is a medical device company. So we are only 6 or 7 scientists, and the remaining 26 people are engineers. different kinds of engineers. So then you set up a meeting with the optical engineers, microfluidic engineers, even mechanical engineers. So now I've started talking a little bit of, mechanical engineering terms, which I had never heard of in my life. But then this difference is really very dramatic, because in my previous postdoc experience, I barely spoke to anyone outside of the biology area. So here you have like a quality control department, you have your R&D team, engineers, external contractors too. So then everyone sits together, brainstorms, comes up with a solution, and then you go forward. And this is something I was not used to. So initially, actually, I would be very frustrated too, because there would be meetings for every little thing. And we are used to handling things all by ourselves, and maybe with the help of our supervisor, if they're supportive, and if the field matches completely. So this change, yeah, it takes time to adapt, but the important thing is, again, I would say, be patient, be persistent, and you'll get there. You can't expect to do the best in the company within the first 2 weeks. It's just not going to happen. And be open to learning whatever everyone has to offer you. Never go with the mindset that you are a PhD, you have a postdoc, and so you have the greatest technical knowledge. Whenever that creeps in, basically you're preparing for your own failure. So make sure to take everyone along the way and move forward. And I think that's critical, and I've learned that now over time.
That's amazing. No, you're right. As postdocs working in labs, we wear all sorts of hats. We wear many hats. We are managing the grants, we're managing the budget, supervising students, doing our own experiments, all sorts of things. Maybe in a big company, the roles are more defined, but then they all intersect. And to have your work succeed, you must be able to interact with other departments and learn their language as well and know what they are looking for. And I think our training in academia prepares us for it, because we know how to work in big teams. So that's amazing. Nishil, moving on to you, how did change management figure in your career in the industry?
Transitioning to the industrial job, for me, I had to work on two major factors, two critical things. First thing is, how can you be a quick learner and a quick decision maker? In academia and postdoc, you have all the time for you to really work through your project, go to the minute details, work on nitty-gritty details and all. But in industry, everything is driven by either financial, market, competition, or everything. How do you adapt to it? How can you be a quick learner? Like sometimes you are, as Shivali mentioned, you go and sit with someone who is not from your trade. You sit with a mechanical engineer. I'm a chemical engineer myself, but I sit with a lot of environmental scientists, city officials, which are law officers, by-law officers. So you need to start speaking their language. How can you be a quick learner so that you come out of your bubble of pure? If I say I was a pure water treatment engineer, I wanted to learn only about absorbing contaminants, removing contaminants, what are the, how can you go about that? So being a quick learner and quickly adaptable, as well as a decision maker, because decision making is key. That's the second challenge I have been still working on, but that is a part of a change management, is accountability. The accountability of your work is key. That means whatever job you do, like if a task is the same, for me, I have to make sure that the water that you treat has to be discharged to a surface environment where we all drink water from. The water should not be contaminated beyond a level that I am going to harm the aquatic life or the human drinking. So I treat industrial wastewater, or sometimes I treat the groundwater from the buildings. So my job has an impact. I have an impact to make. So if I don't do the job correctly, so how do I make sure that everything is right? Sometimes you cannot be a pro in several things. Getting the knowledge from the right people, be open-minded, discussing with your team, gathering all the ideas, like Shivali mentioned, sitting on top with everyone, getting their information, working as a team, and So accountability is one thing. In the academia, sometimes if you fail with one result, you can do more experiment, or you even a negative result can be published, right? Like you can tell that this is, but in an industry, sometimes a negative result has a huge financial burden or a huge environmental impact. In my case, failing one bylaw inspection is like getting a criminal crime, right? You are affecting the life of people. So how do you, so you have to work through those stressful situation of accountability. Sometimes you have to make a decision on within a few minutes, like what do you do next? You have a situation, how do you deal with it? So training yourself, overcoming that fear, and it's okay to fear, it's okay to fail. I always tell it's okay to fail. Working through that is key, and adapting yourself to that is key.
You know, what you just said reminded me of all the job postings that I've seen. One of the opening sentences is, he should be adept at working in a fast-paced environment with multiple competing priorities. And that's the kind of catchphrase I also have on my resume at the very top, right? Yeah. And the importance of accountability and responsibility that you mentioned, that's very important. That's very important, yeah. So we are having some great questions in the chat. We would like to open the floor soon, maybe another 5-10 minutes. So quickly, Mohita, can you elaborate on the change management that you had to go through?
Yeah, I think I would just reinforce some of the points that other panelists have already covered. Fast turnaround to finish projects. It's very important. In academia, you're trained to, getting into the weeds, it's called. Like you are getting into the details. But in industry, it's exactly opposite. You have to learn when to move on. You cannot just stick and, keep pondering over projects. You have to learn, okay, this is where we stop and ready to move on. Timing is very critical. Sometimes you have to compromise on quality due to financial constraints. You want to make a perfect product. We may not have the budget for it. So you should know, this is good enough. This is a minimal viable product ready for the industry. Go and launch it. And you also have to learn like how to adapt to the significant changes that happens when you get into industry. For example, you have to learn new business tools. I spent a lot of extra time outside my office hours to learn those. Like if I can't do it within my office hours, I need to be spending that time to get equipped with these new tools as soon as possible to do my job well. So be ready for some extra time that you have to invest in the starting. And I also found industry peers doing similar jobs with the PhD backgrounds, and I started networking with them, basically learning what's working for you, what's not working for you, what's working for me, what can we learn from each other. So basically build your network again in this people who are into similar job profiles and similar level organizations, and you will learn so many things from your peers outside your company as well. And I've found organization forums online where topics related to my roles are discussed to keep up with industry trends. Like what's the new tools in the industry, what can you learn, what can you start taking to your company and seeing making your processes better. So keep up with the industry trends. And I also had good colleagues and team to work with who were always ready to help. And it's always easy to, if you find a mentor inside your new company, try to learn from them. Like find a mentor and ask them, you are new to this role. Can you, do a bi-weekly check on me and see what I'm doing is everything all right? Is there something I should be, focusing more on? Is there something I can improvise? So keep on being a continuous learner. Ask questions. Don't assume anything. You have to ask questions if you're not sure. Be patient and be ready to unlearn and relearn things. You have to be very agile in your thinking. They're not fixed protocols like we do it in the lab. Things change at a very fast pace, and you have to be very adaptable and flexible to, go with the change. Be kind and humble. People don't care if you have a PhD, as Shivali also mentioned. You have to be very grounded and be ready to learn from anybody in the company, and have effective communication and respect for other people's opinion. Respect the diversity around you and what they have to offer and bring to the table. And my company's motto is teamwork makes dream work. So if you have a good team and you're a good team player, all your dreams and the company's dream will come true. That's it from my side.
Well, that's amazing, right? We cannot take ourselves too seriously in industry, thinking that we have a PhD and a postdoc with a ton of papers and we are the expert in the field. We always have to be open to learning, and it's a process of continuous professional development, and cannot emphasize enough the importance of a network and helpful colleagues and mentors in that process. So thank you, panelists, so much. This discussion is going great, and you're providing really insightful comments and the insider's knowledge, what happens when we transition into the industry. I'm going to hand over the session back to Emma. Emma, you have some questions for our panelists, and then we can open up for Q&A.
I do have questions. I kind of wanted to wrap things up with two questions. And I wanted to hear from all of you. The first is, if I want to end things on a positive note. So if you could tell us 3 things that you love about your job, and then also how can we as postdoc organizations and also universities better support postdocs in their transition to industry? So what do you love about your job? And then how can universities and postdoc associations support the transition better? I guess let's go back, since I always go down my list. Let's start with Adetoyese.
Okay.
I'm putting you on the hot seat first.
Yeah, always, because my name starts with A. So yeah. Okay, so thank you for that question, and thanks to other panelists. I've actually learned a lot of things as well. So 3 things I love about my current job. Number 1 is the opportunity to solve real problem in the industry. So when I was in the university, when I was doing my postdoc, even though we solve problem as postdoc, most of my research, even though it's kind of related to what Canada is discussing, climate change, clean energy, biofuel, but you don't get to see, we had a lot of discussion with government, you had a lot of discussion with industry, but sometimes cost issues kind of drop those ideas. But now, every single project that, I'm overseeing, are solving one major problem in the industry. So that's something that I've always envisaged, I've always wanted, and that's one thing that I love about my job. Number 2 is I love my job because it's a blend of the 2 worlds. So it's a blend of the academic and the industry. So I'm right there in the middle. So I'm still sitting, my office is in the Institute of Technology, but all my meetings each day, I meet with different companies, different industries, from different industries that I've never even envisaged that I will be sitting down with them. So it gives me the opportunity to kind of have impact in both worlds, both academics and the industry. And number 3 is, for my job, I love the fact that it's not something you see in a lot of industry, but it kind of gives me time to manage my time. So I manage my schedule, I manage, the way I do things. So it still gives me that thing that I've always wanted, that was the reason why I wanted academics, but I get it in my current job. So those are, the 3 things. In terms of support, what I would say is this, and I know a lot of people have been asking questions, I've been glancing through the questions on the, on the chat. The major thing I would say is that I love what CAPS is doing. When I was in U of A, I was part of this association. So I love what CAP is doing. But one thing I would say is that right from the onset, if postdocs can be encouraged, because I know that there's a lot of postdocs then at U of A that were not part of CAPS. If postdocs can be encouraged, whether to be part of their U of A or universities association or the general one, it's very important. Number 1, it's opportunity to kind of this forum like this, bring different people from different industry, let them share their experience. How do you change your language from academics to industry? Those trainings are key to prepare you, and it should be right from onset. So as part of the orientation, whenever a postdoc is hired, if there's a way, and I know, it might be challenging, but is there a way to let postdocs know that there's this association, and it's key for you to be part of it because you get to learn a lot of things right from onset. So you don't have to wait till 3 years before starting to know if you can actually, if you have opportunity to go to the industry. Right from the onset, you can start thinking about it that, okay, fine, there could be an opportunity to go into the industry, but I need to learn a lot of things. Platforms like this is a good way to do that. Thank you.
That's fantastic. So yeah, what I'm hearing is, the way that we can best support people is to get the word out early, hearing about your experience and your advice for transitions when you're in the 4th year of your postdoc is a lot less helpful than when you're in your 1st year, and you can take advantage of the MyTax opportunities and things like that and get those experiences early that can help you make decisions about what you want to do for the rest of your life. Right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right. Amazing. And then, if we need to better advertise things, get the word out there. So that's why we're trying to build up our networks of between different postdoc associations to help. I mean, you don't have to be a member of CAPS. We'd love you to, but, be a member of your local postdoc association because they have a wealth of resources as well. So, yes, great. I've jotted all those things down. Thank you so much. That was really great. Ella, how about you? What do you love about your job, and what can we do to support you, and universities as well?
So the first thing I love about my job that it really translates directly to solving the problem we are facing. We all are facing. So it's very little talks, a lot of actually doing stuff. And I like this, fast piece like this. I mentioned before, yes, that I love teamwork. I love being involved in multiple projects and switching them. And, this is the environment I thrilled in. Like, that's all me. So it fits my personality. And so how I see it now, it's like endless possibilities. I still can choose where I can be involved, and maybe QA, QC, maybe HR, maybe, or like I'm doing a lot of both. So that's what I like, and flexibility, as I said, which I still have. And for postdocs, I think maybe we should have more like access to those role models, different role models. And I really appreciated a place like AVI is. Like, it's an academia, but not academia. Yes, I mentioned already. It's like, because this is where I learned the most, even though I had my academic position there. Yes, it wasn't my industrial position. It was, I was a research associate at there. So, but we didn't have to write papers. We didn't have to go into details already. Yes, like it was very much like industry is, but be in academia. So I feel ashamed that we don't offer classes for people, because like it's a great place for like PhD students to have a course or something to see how it looks like. Yes, because it is in the university, at the university. So we have rooms, we have people trained, and they could show. And I remember when we had a presentation on one of the conference, and we showed how to dress the suit for GMP. It got so much attention. People wanted to come to see how the lab looks like, and like I was amazed. And then I started thinking, I'm like, yeah, why don't we offer classes? Or like, course or training, something like this. So I think that would be helpful, actually.
Okay, so that was all fabulous as well. So what I'm also hearing, and I heard that, and Adetoyese said this too, was that in your jobs you have an opportunity to make real change, right? It has impact. You get to work in a team environment, and there's variety, right? You're not just doing one project for 5 years kind of thing. So that's fabulous. And then access to role models, examples of how people have made the transition, what they did, and to see that it had a good outcome, right? To see people succeed, whatever the success means to different people, and then you can, learn, you can adapt that to your own path. I think that's very valuable. And then the opportunities you were talking about say hybrid environments where there's industry experience in an academic setting. And if we could, if there are those things, to create lists of opportunities, right? And make those sort of what Adetoyese was saying about making things more visible, right? These opportunities more visible to people. And then maybe some kind of more training environments like courses and things like that sort of help to bridge the gap between academia and industry. That's fabulous. Okay, Mohita, let's hear your thoughts. What do you love about your job, and what can universities and associations do to support the transition to industry?
Sure. What I really love about my job as a product manager is it's a very complex cross-functional role. It's all about communication, how effectively you can communicate to different departments in the company. It's very challenging, but it's fun. It teaches you a lot about strategic thinking, like what is the impact of what you're doing, not just now, but let's say 3 years, 5 years in the company down the road. So it's very critical for you to make correct decisions with correct information backing those decisions. And also you have to show leadership without direct authority on anyone, and still make sure you get a buy-in for your idea or for your product you are trying to commercialize. You have to borrow resources from all departments of the company to successfully help develop and commercialize and market your product. So I think there's a lot of things you learn and a lot of things you teach, and you have to be a leader, but you have no direct authority. So you have to be very, I would say, careful with your communication, but that also enhances or improves your skills in the end. So I think communication, few points that I would suggest is, any kind of courses that can help in soft communication and doing effective communication would definitely help postdocs to transition. Knowledge about project management, it's required for any role. So if you can, do more courses related to that helps. And any opportunity to show leadership. So for example, when I was in University of Calgary, I was also VP operations for the postdoc union there for some time. So any opportunity you can get in where you can, let's say, work on your leadership skills, I would highly encourage, postdocs to do that.
So when you are talking about these sort of, if you were to take a course in communications or project management or leadership, companies pay attention to that, is what you're saying. Yeah,
exactly.
Okay.
Because these are the things you will need in your everyday work, right? Everyday office life. So if you show that you already have some kind of, certifications for that always gives you an edge. And they are more comfortable hiring you because they know at least you are, aware. And I think one thing that I forgot to mention, you have to also learn a bit about commercial awareness. Be comfortable with numbers, be comfortable with managing budgets, be comfortable with, allocating resources for different parts of the project. Right. I think we don't get a lot of that experience in our academia side, but if you can, let's say, completely own a project start to end, even do the budgeting, talking to vendors, getting resources set and buying instruments, negotiating. If you can do like complete ownership, you will learn all the skills you need to transition to industry.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm very cognizant that we are very short on time, and we do want to come back to the Q&A questions in the chat, but I do want to give Nishil and Shivali an opportunity to answer this question as well. So I'm going to ask you to be very quick. Nishil, tell us what you love about your job and any ways that we can support postdocs in transition to industry.
The most interesting part of my job is the real impact I can make, especially working with the water and the environment that we live. And I like, as all our panelists mentioned, working as a team to solve the critical challenges. And that is key. And for me, like Canadian Postdoctoral Association can typically organize some events where you can find out a list of mentors and try to pair different professionals that in turn can help different postdocs who are actively looking to transition, right? At least get some one-to-one sessions depending on the availability of the time, mentorship sessions, and also a lot of communication training and all, because communication and program management, project management is a key to every role. So some soft skill development that can really help.
Great, great. I really like the idea of having mentors. I'm assuming that you would, that everyone here wouldn't mind being a mentor. You don't have to answer that right now. And finally, Shivali, tell us what you love about your job and ways we can support industry transition.
Yeah. So aside from obviously bringing a product to the market that directly helps, patients, people, the most important things that I love is the ability to be involved in critical decision making within the company. That's one thing. The second thing would be developing people. So that's something that I'm learning to as I go, but I'm also enjoying that. And then the third thing is, as I mentioned, building a whole product. And then the way different teams have to be coordinated so that something meaningful comes out. Now, in terms of support, I can talk for myself and say that I'm willing to do resume reviews. I already see I've received a few LinkedIn requests. So I'm willing to help you in any way you want me to support you for your job search. So feel free to connect with me. And then, I can definitely vouch for myself right now and say that I will try and help you to my.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I think that's a big part of what we've been trying to build over the last few years. I don't know how successful we've been, but being able to bring those postdocs that have gone on and achieved success, got these positions, to bring them back and to be able to share their experiences and their strategies. Because I think there's nothing, more important than actual on the ground lessons learned, right? Okay, so we have to get to the Q&A. Okay, so first of all, the floor is open. If anybody wants to raise their hand and ask a question to the panelists, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, pop your questions in the chat. I know there's been lots of things going on in here. I'm just going to review. But one of the questions that was asked was, if you know that there are companies in your field that you're interested in, but they're not posting positions at the moment, is it a good idea to reach out and maybe cold call somebody to indicate your interest in your availability, or is this frowned upon? So is it a good idea? I'm going to ask out to anybody who wants to answer on the panel.
So maybe I should quickly just answer that, and another person can add to it. So to me, I think it's not out of place to do that. It's very good. However, it's the way you kind of approach it. So personally, I wouldn't go directly and said, I'm looking for a job. Okay. That's me. So what I would do is I'll try to reach out to you, connect to you. Probably if it's LinkedIn, if not for COVID, probably we met in a place. I'll just like, oh, can I connect to you? I want to get to learn more about the thing that you're doing, about how my research, what I'm currently doing aligns with your work. So that would be my starting point. And from there, I build that network with those in that company. Then gradually, I will gradually let them know that, yeah, I think I'm getting to the point that I want to make that transition. If you are aware of any opportunity, I would love to do that. So, but my first question will not be, I'm looking for a job in your company. Please, is there a job? No, I won't start with that, because straight answer will be no. And then you've cut off that opportunity to connect with the person. So I'll go by introducing myself, what I do, how I want to learn more about what they're doing in their company. And because sometimes it might not be what you think they're doing. So you want to kind of know more. When you build that network, then you can gradually introduce that. Okay, fine. I'm getting to that point of making that transition. Yeah.
Right. Good advice. I'm going to move us along because there are actually a lot of good questions in the chat. And the next question is, and we've sort of touched on this a little bit, about how many rejections you can expect. That's just what happens when you're applying for a job, before you start to think, there might be something wrong with my resume or what I'm doing. Is there sort of like a buffer zone of rejections that you should kind of expect before you kind of look at yourself, or should you be constantly getting feedback to see how to improve? I'm not sure who wants to answer that question.
So I can just quickly start.
Mm.
I don't think there is a set number,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it could be 5 for somebody, it could be 50 for another person. It depends on what field you're looking at.
Right, right.
One thing I've also learned is that apply and then I mean, follow up obviously later on, but just forget about it. Don't keep thinking. It's like, you know, how we submit a paper to a journal. Leave it at that point. If you just go keep checking the status every day, it's going to drive you crazy. So, right, just apply. It's your job. Do it and forget about it until you hear back. Or if it's a very nice opportunity that you think you should pursue, then of course you should follow up.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times you may not even hear back, especially the bigger companies. If
So
it's a cold application, you're not going to hear back. So don't even expect to always hear back.
Okay. So you should just be kind of doing a blanket, you know, sending your resume to lots of different places, and don't take any of those rejections too much to heart, right?
Yeah. However, one thing I want to also say is consider it kind of a red flag if you're being rejected after interviews, like a lot of rounds of interviews, and then you're not getting through. It's time to go back and do a quick check. But just right after you submit an application and you don't hear back from the HR or from whoever is concerned, I think you should not read too much into it.
Okay, good. That's really great advice. We have a question. So they say, thank you for the seminar. Thank you for everyone's great input. This person would like to apply for industry jobs, but they don't know how to start. So preparing your resume is the first step, and academic CVs and industry resumes are different things. What do you recommend for preparing a resume? What are the key points? And, you know, are there any tips and tricks that everyone can recommend?
Maybe I can quickly touch upon that.
Fantastic.
So one thing that you have to definitely, do is not have a very long resume. One page is what is generally preferred in industry. 2-page maximum. Don't try to make a booklet out of your resume.
Less is more.
Yeah, exactly. And try to really read the job description and make sure you can get as many keywords from the job description and show the same impact on your resume. If you have a certain, experience related to that, key points written in the job description, try to just focus and highlight those ones. And also, people want to see the impact of your work. For example, if you have taken a project that led to, let's say, some kind of process efficiency, how much was that number? Like, was it a 30% better performance or 20% better performance? They want to see, like, what was the end result. So that's very important to highlight in your resume. Education could be at the end. They want to see the skills. They want to see the most relevant experience for that specific job description. If you can just focus and highlight on that, people pick your resume very quickly. And the second thing I want to mention and about applying for jobs, I think you don't have to ask for jobs from people, but at least, ask for an information interview. If you know somebody in the industry, and specifically for the company that you're applying, just say that, I just want to get some career advice. That's the word I used a lot, which helped me get a lot of information interviews. Ask for just career advice. Like, I'm trying to transition. This is the first time I'm doing it. I just need some tips and tricks. What worked for you? What was your journey? What can I learn from that and, adapt to my journey? And finally, I'm very happy to help whoever, I can help. So feel free to reach out, and I'm active on LinkedIn. You can connect me through that. I can share my email. If there is anybody I can help, I would be the first person to do it. So feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much. And I think something you mentioned earlier about, the impact metrics. I think in academic CVs, we tend to just do a great big long list of all our presentations and our papers and everything. But what you're talking about is summarizing. And I think this kind of speaks to the inventory that we were saying that we should be creating. What was your impact? Okay, so you had all these papers, but what did that really change? You worked in all these projects, but what did you contribute? Right. And it's those sorts of things that how do you boil down your experiences into some number that someone can quickly assess? Right. and to do that homework, because you said that before, doing your homework is very important. And I think that creating that inventory and being able to summarize those experiences and your impact in your field is very critical. Okay, so we have other questions that we need to get to here. So someone is asking, you know, they were told by their mentor that once their postdoc ends, that you're no longer a trainee. I would argue that you're already not a trainee. I would already argue that this is work, right? Postdoc is work. But you know, then when they move into a new industry, you know, they're still fresh. They're still, you know, getting the hang of things. And they ask, what advice do you have to deal with that fear and uncertainty about your skills? And then how do you transition from working alone on your projects in the lab to working as a manager and managing a team? So how do you deal with that fear? And then how do you go from being alone to managing?
I can add some points on that.
Great.
And how it helped from my experience. So Mohita mentioned a lot about having a good resume and informational networking. But in the industry, to tackle all the challenges, I would say volunteering for industry organizations is key. Like which industry you wanted to go, all the industry has the organization of their professionals. Working with them, volunteering for their events. And when you start volunteering with the senior professionals, like say for example, in the Water Association, in Ontario, we have a Water Association of Ontario. I started there. For me, really getting to know about the industry, working with the professionals, volunteering with them, help to navigate through the minute details of what industry is actually like. And apart from that, I started along with the academic journals that you read and order research papers in the academic field. I started reading and subscribing to trade journals, industry journals. That is where you start understanding the industry lingo. Look, there are several things that we use in our research paper about stuff, but there are some industrial terms which we as in the academia are not aware of. Reading through this trade journals and also following the key what do you call the industry professionals in your field really helps you.
That's
That is
great.
some of the things.
So I guess knowledge is what really is the great antidote to fear, I guess, right? So what you're saying, you know, like immerse yourself in, if you're new and if you're still learning, immerse yourself in the journal, in the, you know, the materials that people are using to communicate the, you know, what's happening in the field. Get out there and just talk to people, right? And that's how you learn. So that's my takeaway from what you're saying is that's the best antidote to fear.
Yes.
And then learning to manage people. How does one do that? I mean, like, is it that you just have to get involved in projects where you're just thrown in at the deep end, or whether you know, can you take project management courses, or is it a mixture of those things?
In many cases, I would suggest you can understand by listening to the people. And first, in many of the projects, when you are working with a new team, I take some time to listen to people, what they have to say. If you're a good learner, you can work with the team and proceed, right? That is one of the, starting with listening, understanding that each person has different personality traits. How can you work with all these personality traits, and how you can overcome the fear of dealing with different personality traits and adapting your personality to work with that culture is the key.
Right.
I would like to quickly add something to what Nishil said. Maybe it's good idea when you're in your postdoctoral training to kind of co-supervise a grad student, or at least train undergrad, so that it's same like in industry you would call that a manager position. In academia it's more of a postdoc,
right?
So that's one thing that you can always start off right away and develop along the way.
Ella, you had something to say?
Yes, that even if you feel fear at the beginning, you will find out very soon if the position is for you or not, okay? Because industry is not for everyone.
Okay.
And we have actually in our company a person who is going back to academia, yes, because like she's decided industry is not for her. She wants to publish, she wants to pursue. So I don't think, you know, it's not the end of the life, and
right,
like you can always switch. I think, you know, I do get that it might be harder when you are, you know, later in your career in industry. Going back to academia might be impossible, but this transition period, like she's not even 1 year working with us, and that's not for her.
But I think this comes back to, I think you might have said this in your introduction, is that it's important to know yourself, right?
Yes.
And that if you've never been in industry before, you don't really have a feel for what it's like. And so you give it a try. And I think, I'm not sure who said this, but it's very powerful that you're not locked in, right? It might be hard, but you can always change. But the thing is to be bold and to try things, right? To be open to the opportunities.
And actually, I worked with a postdoc when I was doing my postdoc who came back from industry because he's decided that it's not for him after 2 years being in industry, yes. And yeah, he came back and continued with his postdoc, and now he moved to US and he has a position. So
yeah, it's all knowledge and experience, right?
Yes.
So it's
yes.
And I think everyone here has sort of echoed the sentiments, like, don't be afraid to fail. It's not failure. It's just more knowledge and experience.
It's experience.
Okay, questions in the chat. I get, so I'm gonna have to just boil these down because of the time. How much can you advance in your industry career with respect to position titles? So for example, in academia, you know, you can be an assistant professor to a full professor. What are the ranks like in industry? Anybody have any thoughts? I mean, how do you, say in your company, how do you move up?
I think it's really dependent on the designation that you have in the company. It's very different. So I'm more in a techno-commercial role now. So I've moved away from research a little bit. I still have like a say in the research part, but it's more on the commercial side. So it's more like, you know, talking to the senior teams, senior management of the company. So you could be a product manager, you can become a product owner, you can be a director of, you know, the whole product development team. And sometimes you end up becoming general manager also, because you're controlling so many different projects, you know, products of the company. So it really depends. I'm sure the science part would be very different for scientists. So maybe a scientist can tell how you go about from being a scientist.
So sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Emma.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, so one thing is, don't actually fall in love with the position, the title. You know what the roles are. Each company has. So for example, scientist position in one company might be equivalent to principal scientist in another, or it could be called scientist 3 in another, like a third company. So it really depends on the company. There is no, it's not standardized at all. It's not university, right? There's no fixed grades.
Right.
But in general, you can move up pretty quickly up to a director level, I think, from what I've seen in my company.
Great.
As a PhD. Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, I have a saucy question here. So this is related to careers in life and medical sciences. Someone in the chat is asking, what kind of starting salary should someone be expecting in industry? Now, I'm sure it's very variable, but I'm sure ballpark would be helpful. So say you've got 5 years of postdoc experience, you're going out for the first time into industry, you know, surely you're not expecting $30,000, right? Like, give us a ballpark of what you could be getting. Salaries are always touchy subjects.
So
maybe the starting, because we all know what's the starting for postdoc.
Yeah.
Okay, so I can share my story.
Sure. Yeah.
Because my salary in AVI was pretty okay, but I was not happy with my job to the point that I decided to take a pay cut. Okay.
Yeah.
And also there is always room for negotiations. And the starting salary from at my company, and but I am a startup, yes. So we don't have much money for salaries at the very beginning. It was they listed as 60,000,
Right.
which is better than postdoc already.
Oh yeah.
I think, yes, but because I am experienced more, yes, because I was switching from
Because of the protein
research associate. Yes. So yeah, but I negotiated. I was like very open that this is way too little and I want more.
Okay, so you just said a magic word there, negotiation. That is something we are not used to doing in academia.
I know.
Right? And even if we go into academic positions, that's something we are not taught to do. So how do we learn to do that? How do we advocate for ourselves? Is that something like a My Tax course would teach you, or you just have to do it? I don't know how you learn to negotiate.
I don't know how I did, but somebody told me once that you are not asking for a raise, you go to get it. With this approach, yes, because like you know what you want, you know what you are worth, and like I knew that if they wouldn't give me more money, I wouldn't have taken this job, because it was I have my expenses, I have kids in daycare, like all sorts of things. Yes, I emphasize this a lot.
Can I see everybody here who negotiated their contracts when they first started? Yeah. Okay, so some people did. Okay.
But I actually negotiated both. Even in academia, even for my research associate position, I negotiated.
Good.
Yeah.
My contract.
Sorry, I was just saying that even as a postdoc, you should be negotiating after every year, because you're becoming an experienced postdoc, and you should talk to your PIs for that. Second thing I wanted to say is, like, when you're trying to transition to industry, your first salary should really not matter, because once you have the right title in the industry, it's very easy to hop on and switch to similar, highly to bigger companies, let's say, which are willing to pay you whatever you want them to pay you. So your first salary should not be an impediment in making that switch. Once you have done a 1 or 2 years of experience, you will yourself feel more confident and understand where you stand, what you can negotiate. And there is always a scope of, I would say, 10 to 20% room of negotiation for any offer you get. So always keep that in mind. Ask for at least 20% more of what they're offering you, and there is a possibility you will get it. But again, it should not be your criteria of picking a position. It should be what experience you're going to gain if you take that position.
Right.
And I would also add one more thing. A key resource to finding salaries would be have a quick Google search on Indeed salary and LinkedIn salary, and also Glassdoor salary. These are the three things which I typically use: Glassdoor, LinkedIn, and Indeed salaries. They give you a ballpark number on what the typical roles make in similar companies. So you shouldn't be looking at all the titles the same way. One title in a bigger company will pay you more rather than a startup. So you have to understand what sort of industry you are getting into. Maybe a engineer in the water treatment field is paid different than an engineer in a medical device company or a pharmaceutical company. So you have to understand the industry, and that's where the key is informational interviews. You don't directly call and ask them what will be your salary. Just ask them as a beginner, how much should I be expecting? That's why volunteering in industrial organizations and all of that.
Fabulous. Fantastic advice. Okay, so I think we're way over time, so we've got to wrap things up. I'm going to hand the mic back over to Drew for some parting thoughts. Before I do, thank you so much to the panelists. This has been so fantastic. I could talk to you for hours and hours more. We're going to try to crystallize all of the nuggets of really valuable information that you've shared with us today. And as certain, as we've noted, if we can continue these discussions in a forum and start to build these mentor networks, you all would be really, really welcome and really, really valuable. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Thanks to all the participants today for your great questions too. And Drew, over to you.
Thank you, Emma. Yeah, I also just want to give a note of thanks to all our participants, Ila, Adetoyese, Shivali, Nishil, and Mohita, and Emma yourself. You've been very generous with your time. Thank you for volunteering your time to join us in this conversation, share your insights, and I'm sure we are inspired after this conversation. I'm really thankful that you are sharing your LinkedIn and emails with our panel, with our participants. And we are over time, we couldn't take more questions, but it would be great if people can connect with you. And very soon we'll post the recording on YouTube. So follow our YouTube channel. We have 2 exciting sessions coming the following 2 days. One is related to elevating your personal brand. So if participants register for it on Eventbrite for day 4, we will send you the Zoom link to that session. Thank you once again. A big shout out to the PAW organizing committee, Dr. Christopher Nzidego, Dr. Idris Madadian, and to our wonderful moderators, myself. And participants, please let's do a virtual applause for all our panelists. Thank you for being here. You've been very kind, very wonderful.
Thank you so much, everyone. That's a wrap for today's session. So go out, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.